The girl who stole his knife, I found him on a day the sky looked like wet cement. 10-year-old Ren Haru was crouched beside a broken vending machine in the harbor district, gathering plastic bottles into a sack that had once carried rice. His shirt was too big, his shoes were too thin, and the whole alley smelled of rust, damp cardboard, and the sweet sour bite of garbage that never quite left your lungs. When he looked up, his eyes were not the eyes of a child asking for help. They were the eyes of a child measuring distance, exits, and threats. In my ear, Atlas whispered like a radio in a pocket. Move, recruit, rescue target. Failure will trigger penalty. Atlas was the system that had appeared in my head 3 weeks earlier, the night my foster father tried to trade my school ID for liquor. It spoke in clipped commands and offered rewards the way a trap offers bait. It said Ren would grow into a man who broke laws with his bare hands, a villain in someone else's story, and that my job was to keep him from taking his first irreversible step. The problem was I had no money, no home worth calling safe, and no talent for miracles. I had a backpack, 2 bruises that hadn't faded yet, and the kind of stubbornness poverty teaches you when nobody else is going to carry you. Atlas urged again. Approach. Select cover identity. I watched Ren's fingers, raw and scraped, pinch up a bottle cap like it was a coin. He didn't glance at the strangers passing the mouth of the alley. He didn't ask for change. He just worked. Silent, efficient, and alone. Okay, I muttered, more to myself than to Atlas. We do it my way. I stepped into the alley and made my voice small. Hey, I said, letting my eyes go wide the way adults liked. Can you give me the bottles in your hand? Ren froze. His posture tightened, like a cat deciding whether to scratch. His gaze flicked to my shoes, my sleeves, my face. He didn't trust my softness. Smart kid? Why? He asked. I swallowed and went for the ugliest truth I could fake. That's my food money for today, I said. My parents left me here. They walked away and didn't come back. It was a cheap lie, because it was close to my own life. And lies that have teeth are easier to wear. Ren's hand trembled, just once, like a glitch in his control. His jaw clenched. Then, without a word, he grabbed the sack at his feet, stuffed it into my arms, and forced his voice to stay flat. Take it, he said. All of it. If you don't have anywhere to go, do you want to come home with me? Atlas flashed a green prompt in my vision. Trust established. Bond formed. Mission probability up. I nearly laughed, because my home was a mattress behind a laundromat, and his home was probably worse. Still, Ren said it like he meant shelter, not ownership. In a world where kindness usually came with hooks, that mattered. I nodded quickly. Yes, I said. Thank you. I'm Kay. He hesitated, then gave a name like he was handing over a knife. Ren, he said. Don't talk too much. People listen. His place was a single room above a noodle stall that had gone bankrupt. The stairwell smelled of bleach and old cooking oil. Inside, the power was always off unless absolutely necessary. A window was stuck half open, letting cold air in, and the floor held 2 thin bedding rolls, one smaller than the other. Ren moved like a soldier in a room that didn't belong to him, dropping his shoes in the same corner, checking the lock twice, counting the food. He handed me a foil-wrapped sweet potato, still steaming. Eat, he said. You're shaking. I hadn't realized I was. I took it with both hands, and the warmth sank into my palms like comfort I didn't deserve. Ren sat on the edge of his bedding and watched me eat, expression blank. But when I looked closer, his eyes kept drifting to the empty space near the door, like he expected someone to burst in. You live alone? I asked carefully. He shrugged. With ghosts, he said. Atlas whispered. Target trauma confirmed. That night, rain drummed on the window. Ren came in late, soaked, with the smell of smoke clinging to his clothes. He tucked something sharp into his sleeve with a movement too practiced for a child. My stomach dropped. What is that? I asked. Nothing, he said. He lied badly. Atlas hummed in my ear. Tonight is critical. Prevent escalation. I remembered Atlas's warning. Ren would meet the man who killed his parents and try to end him. The attempt would fail. Ren would be beaten. The man would vanish. Years later, Ren would hunt again, and the hunt would turn him into the kind of person the world labels monster without asking what made him. I watched Ren's sleeve, the outline of metal beneath cloth, and I felt my own fear sharpen into decision. I got off my bedding and grabbed the hem of his jacket. I didn't take his hand. Instinct told me he hated being touched. So I held fabric, like a child holding a lifeline. "Don't go," I said. Ren frowned at me, confusion flashing. "Move," he muttered. "I'm busy." "Ren," I said, voice rising just enough to crack. "It's late. If you go out now, you'll get in trouble." He stared at my fingers on his sleeve as if calculating whether to yank away. His face went darker, but not with anger, with conflict. "Kay," he said. "Let go." Atlas urged. "Stall. Distract. Use attachment." So I did the only thing I could think of. I lifted the sweet potato wrapper from the table. "It's getting cold," I said, trying to sound normal, trying to sound like a kid whose biggest problem was dinner. "Do you want to eat it with me? Please?" Ren's eyes flicked to the food, then to the door, then back to me. His throat bobbed once. He exhaled like it hurt. 5 minutes, he said, stiff. "Then I go." I nodded too fast. "Okay," I said. 5 minutes. Then we decide again. He sat, grudging his gravity, and I tore the sweet potato in half and offered him a piece. He took it without looking at my face. His hands were cold, but his grip was steady, as if he trained his body not to betray him. In the silence, Atlas whispered, "Contact law enforcement. Provide location. Recommended action." I didn't like the word law enforcement. In the Harbor District, police were something that arrived late and left early, unless there was money involved. But Atlas had already compiled a case file in my vision. A drunk driver who fled a hit-and-run 3 years earlier, uncharged, still living nearby, still breathing like he hadn't erased 2 lives. "Do it," I mouthed to Atlas, barely moving my lips. "Report anonymously." Atlas replied, "Request accepted. Signal sent." Ren finished his food in 3 bites, stood up, and reached into his sleeve again. I surged forward and caught his jacket. "Wait," I said. "If you go, take me." Ren's eyes narrowed. "No. If you leave me here," I said, letting my voice tremble on purpose. "I can't sleep. I get scared." It wasn't entirely acting. I was scared of him and for him at the same time, and that kind of fear sits in your ribs like a fist. Ren stared at me for a long beat. Then he said, "Rough. Fine. But you do what I say. You don't talk. You don't stop." I nodded. "I will." We walked through the rain until the streetlights smeared into pale halos. Ren moved fast and quiet, hugging walls, stepping around puddles like they were traps. He led us toward a residential block, where the buildings were newer, the air cleaner, the kind of place that never admitted kids like us unless we came to deliver something. As we approached, Ren halted, so suddenly, I almost bumped into him. Down the street, blue-red lights pulsed against wet asphalt. A line of police cars blocked the road. People clustered under umbrellas. A man in handcuffs was being shoved into a cruiser, his head bowed, his face shadowed by rain. Ren's breathing changed. His body went rigid. His hand slid toward his sleeve. I stepped closer, small and steady, and grabbed his wrist through the fabric before he could pull the blade. My fingers shook, but I held. Ren turned on me, eyes cold. "Let go," he whispered. I looked up, forcing innocence into my face, and did the softest violence I knew. I made him see me. "Ren," I said quietly, "the potato's cold now? Will you come home and eat with me anyway?" His gaze flicked to the man being arrested, then back to me. In his eyes, something warred. Rage, grief, relief, and the terrified urge to finish what fate offered. He swallowed, and his hand loosened. He stared at the police lights as if memorizing them. Atlas murmured, "Critical event avoided. Dark path disrupted." Ren didn't answer for a long time. Then he said, barely audible, "Okay." We went home, and in the middle of the night, Atlas told me Ren was dreaming, trapped in the moment his parents died. Replaying it like a broken clip, the system said I should increase emotional support to stabilize him, as if comfort was a lever you could pull. I climbed out of my bedding and crawled toward Ren's. He was sweating, brow furrowed, lashes trembling. I slid under his blanket carefully. Ren jolted and yanked me out in one sharp motion. "Kay," he hissed, voice cold. "Back to your bed." I stood there, humiliated and stubborn, and then I did something reckless. I pushed myself into his chest anyway and wrapped my arms around his back, holding him like a tiny furnace. Ren went stiff. His breath turned heavy. In the dark, I could hear every heartbeat we owned. "You want me to throw you outside?" he muttered. I didn't answer. I tucked my face into his shoulder and pretended to be asleep, because sometimes pretending is a bridge. Ren's voice softened, barely. 5 minutes, he said, like it was a rule that saved him. Only 5. He began counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3, 5. Then, after a long pause, he added, 5 more. His hand, hesitant as a confession, settled on my shoulder and pulled me closer. After that, the harbor district had 2 kids scavenging together. We walked alleys at dawn, collecting bottles, sorting metal, selling scrap. Atlas mocked me for choosing hardship when it could have arranged a better identity. But Atlas didn't understand that a child like Ren didn't trust gifts. He trusted shared hunger. Ren would shove candy into my pocket when I wasn't looking. He would fix my torn shoes with thread and a bent needle. When he had enough money, the first thing he bought wasn't food for himself. It was a cheap dress for me, flower-patterned, too bright for our gray life. I twirled in it in front of the cracked mirror, laughing, and Ren's ears turned red like he'd been burned. "Don't spin so much," he muttered, adjusting the collar with careful hands. "You'll fall." "I want to fall," I teased. "As long as you catch me." He pretended not to hear, but his fingers lingered on the fabric like it mattered. As we grew, so did the world around us, uglier and more complicated. Our neighbor Lena, the oldest daughter in a family of 4, kept bringing leftovers and smiling like she wasn't exhausted. Her father was loud when drunk and quiet when angry. Her mother was the kind of woman who cried in public and negotiated in private. One evening, Lena pressed a box of wedding candy into my hand and a red envelope with coins. Her eyes were swollen. "I'm getting married," she said, forcing a smile. "To Mr. Shen?" I blurted, because I'd seen the math teacher, Mr. Shen, walk Lena home more than once, his gaze soft, his hands clenched like he didn't know where to put his love. Lena's mouth trembled. "Not to him," she whispered. "To a man in the county. Don't ask. It's easier." She left before I could stop her. I told Ren that night, rambling to fill silence. Ren listened without commenting, face unreadable. When I finished, he said quietly, "Keep the candy. We'll need sugar." The next day, Mr. Shen called me into the staff office at school. His face looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, dark circles carved beneath his eyes. "Kay," he said, voice raw. "You know Lena. Please, talk to her. Her parents are selling her to a 60-year-old man for a bride price. I have the money. I can give them what they want. But Lena won't take it. She says it's too late." My stomach churned. Why would her parents do that? I asked, though I knew the answer. Because pain becomes currency in the wrong hands. Mr. Shen pressed his palms together like prayer. "Help me," he begged. I went to Lena's building and accidentally heard voices through the kitchen window. 2 women gossiping. Lena's mother laughed, saying the brother's disability would never be cured, that the money wasn't for medicine, that it was for them. They joked about how Lena would obey because she'd been trained to obey. My vision tunneled. Rage surged. I stepped closer and snapped a branch under my shoe. The women inside fell silent. Then the door banged open. Before they could see me fully, Ren appeared beside me like he had been waiting in the shadows. His gaze was flat, dangerous. He planted himself between me and the doorway. "Run," he said to me without looking. "Get Lena." I ran. At the curb, Lena sat stiffly in a hired van, her dress crumpled, her eyes dull. When I banged on the window and yelled, she lowered it with a tired smile. "Why are you here?" she asked. "You should be in class." "Don't go," I blurted, breathless. "I heard them. Your mom lied. The money isn't for your brother. They're selling you and laughing about it." Lena's face drained of color. For a second, she looked like she might vomit. Then, behind me, shouting erupted. Lena's mother stormed out, eyes wild, cursing about dirty orphans and ungrateful daughters. I saw Ren shoved out the doorway hard enough to hit the ground. I saw his forehead split where something grazed him. Blood streaked down his temple. My heart stopped. Ren got up anyway. Lena's mother lunged for the van door, trying to drag Lena back inside. I leaped forward without thinking and bit her arm. She yelped and slapped me away. I stumbled, but Ren caught me and yanked me behind him. "Stay," he said, voice tight. "I handle it." A neighbor woman, bribed with the promise of cash, lifted a half brick and threw it at Ren from behind. I screamed a warning. Ren twisted just in time. The brick scraped his skin, leaving a red gash. Ren didn't flinch. He grabbed Lena's wrist and pulled, forcing her out of the van with a shove toward freedom. "Go!" he snapped. Lena ran, sobbing, and halfway down the street a bicycle skidded to a stop. Mr. Shen. He grabbed Lena like she was the only solid thing left in his life. His eyes were red. He didn't speak at first. He just held her hand and breathed like he had been drowning. Behind them, Lena's mother collapsed on the pavement, wailing like a performance, demanding her money back. No one gave it. Not that day. I helped Ren home. In our room, I cleaned the cut on his forehead with trembling hands. My tears kept falling onto the bandage. "I'm fine," Ren said, awkward, reaching to wipe my cheek with a thumb that didn't know how to be gentle. After a pause, he pulled me into his chest like it was the only language he trusted. "We already took the wedding candy," he muttered. "So, we can't let the wedding go to waste." I laughed through tears. "The candy is sweet," I sniffed. Ren's mouth twitched. "Eat it," he said. "It's cold outside." After the Lena incident, Ren decided we needed to move. He said it like a fact, like safety was a route you could take if you walked fast enough. He poured nearly all our saved money into a cheap apartment in a different district, closer to schools, farther from the alleys that had trained his anger. The new building wasn't luxury, but it had something that felt miraculous, a working television. It was old, secondhand, but the screen lit up, and the sound came through without hissing. I sat cross-legged on the floor and stared like the world had opened a window just for us. Lena and Mr. Shen lived in the same complex, newly married, their laughter quieter now but real. Lena would sneak spicy snack sticks from the corner store and eat them in the park like contraband. Mr. Shen would catch her and scold, then secretly buy her more, because love is often hypocrisy in the best way. Ren pretended to be annoyed by their sweetness. "They're noisy," he said. "You sound jealous," I teased. Ren glared, but his ears went red again. "Study," he ordered, and shoved a workbook at me. We became a small, strange family of survivors. Ren taught himself programming using a battered laptop bought with scrap money. He built tiny games that made kids in our building laugh. Atlas called it talent expression. I called it Ren finding a door that didn't require violence. Ren bought me hair ties and notebooks. I bought him cheap gloves for winter. When he earned his first real payment from an online client, he didn't upgrade his own shoes. He bought me a simple coat and said, "Gruff, don't get sick." He rarely smiled, but when he did, it felt like sunlight falling through broken roof tiles. Years passed. I grew into a teenager. Ren grew into a man who carried his past like a hidden blade, but he learned, slowly, to set it down. Then, when I was in my last year of high school, Ren's company almost collapsed. His business partner, a man who had eaten at our table and patted my head like an uncle, vanished overnight with their funds. Contracts failed, clients canceled. Ren started staying up all night, the light of his laptop turning his face pale. The circles under his eyes deepened. His silence sharpened. Atlas notified me. Target stress spike. Risk of regression. I wasn't going to let the system be right, so I did what I had done at 10. I acted like comfort was a weapon. One night I dragged my pillow into Ren's room and laid it on the floor beside his bed. "If you get up to work," I said, "I'll wake up. Then I'll be mad." Ren stared at the pillow like it offended him. "You're ridiculous," he said. "And you're dying," I replied. "Pick one." He grumbled, but he went to bed. I woke in the morning in his bed anyway, wrapped in his arms. He had carried me up without me noticing, like he couldn't bear the distance. His heartbeat under my ear was slow, stubborn. This became a habit. On nights I tried to sleep alone, I'd wake with Ren's hand around my waist like a tether. "Ren," I complained once, half asleep, "I can sleep by myself." He pressed his forehead to mine, voice hoarse. "Not tonight," he said. "Not while the world is trying to steal everything again." The line between brother and guardian and something else blurred the way boundaries blur when two people share every hunger and every victory. The summer of my college entrance exams arrived like a storm. Ren forced me to eat 2 eggs and a fried breadstick on exam day, joking that it meant a high score, and I nearly threw it all up on the sidewalk. "You'll be fine," he said, steadying me by the elbow. "I can't breathe," I whispered. Ren's gaze softened. "Then breathe with me," he said, and exhaled slowly until my lungs matched his rhythm. After the last test, Lena and Mr. Shen waited outside the gate holding flowers. Ren stood behind them, hands shoved in his pockets, trying to look unimpressed. But his eyes were bright, and when I ran to him, he caught me easily, like he had practiced for years. When results came, I sat in front of Ren's laptop and refused to look at the screen. I buried my face in his stomach like a coward. "You check," I said. "If it's terrible, you can. Punish me." Ren snorted. "What punishment? If it's under 400, slap me. If it's over 500, pinch me. If it's 600. I hesitated. "I don't know." Ren clicked the keys. I heard the page load. I heard his breath catch. Silence stretched. 10 seconds. 30. I peeked up and saw the number. 666. I screamed and launched into him, my head smacking his chin. Ren hissed in pain, then laughed. The sound startled out of him. "You did it," he said, disbelieving, as if the universe had finally stopped trying to prove a point. I kissed his cheek hard, pure impulse. Ren didn't dodge. He froze. I pulled back, suddenly embarrassed, cheeks burning. "Sorry," I blurted. Ren's eyes were dark, focused on my mouth like it was a problem he couldn't code away. He swallowed, slow, and his voice came out rough. "Don't do that like it's nothing," he said. My heart lurched. "What do you mean?" I whispered. Ren looked away, jaw clenched, as if holding himself back was the hardest task he'd ever done. "Nothing," he lied. "Pick your schools." I tried to pick a university far away, near the sea, because I'd never seen an ocean that wasn't gray. Ren shut it down calmly. "Food there is bad," he said. I picked a city with canals. Ren shook his head. "Dorms have shared bathrooms," he said. In the end, I landed in a top school nearby, close enough that I could cycle home in minutes. I pretended to be annoyed. Secretly, I was relieved. Atlas's mission might have ended on paper, but I still feared what could happen if Ren was left alone with his shadows. College was supposed to be freedom. For me, it was a double life. Student by day, Ren's anchor by night. I came home almost every evening. I complained about professors. I ate Ren's cooking. I watched him fix his company piece by piece, starting over with quieter partners and stronger contracts. One weekend, after a rare party, I got drunk and called Ren to pick me up. When he arrived, I climbed onto his back like a koala and bit his neck playfully. "Kay," Ren warned, voice low. I giggled. "You smell like grilled pork," I said. Ren went rigid. He set me down, jaw tight. "Stop," he said. My drunk brain fixated on one word. Stop. It annoyed me. I pouted and leaned into him anyway, my mouth brushing his cheek, then sliding toward his lips. Ren's hands shot out and gripped my waist hard enough to make me gasp. "You act like a thief," he said, voice rough. "You steal and then you run." "I can run," I mumbled, trying to pull back. Ren didn't let me. His eyes were sharp, hungry, terrified. "Open your mouth," he said, and the command sounded like surrender. I did. The kiss that followed was nothing like the childish peck I'd given him after my exam. It was heat, urgency, years of restraint snapping in one breath. I clung to him, dizzy, and for a moment the world narrowed to his hands and my heartbeat, and the truth neither of us had wanted to name. When I woke the next morning, the first thought in my head was, disaster. I slid out of bed, grabbed my shoes, and tried to flee. Ren's arm wrapped around my waist from behind and hauled me back like I'd always belonged there. "Where are you going?" he murmured, voice thick with sleep. "Library," I lied. "It's Saturday," Ren said. "I have. Studying," I stammered. Ren kissed the side of my neck, and my brain short-circuited. "You're going to pay your debt," he said softly. "My debt?" I squeaked. Ren's mouth curved. "For stealing my first kiss and pretending it meant nothing," he said. I turned, face burning. "That wasn't your first." Ren's eyes darkened. "Don't," he warned. "Don't rewrite our story to make it safer." I swallowed. My hands fidgeted with his shirt. "I'm scared," I admitted, and I hated how small I sounded. Ren rested his forehead against mine. "So am I," he said. "But I'm more scared of losing you than of being ruined." Atlas popped a notification in my vision like it was proud. Redemption value 200% achieved. Historical record. I blinked hard. "Atlas," I hissed. "Go away." Atlas replied, "Monitoring continues." Ren, half awake, grabbed my hand and brought my ring finger to his mouth. He bit gently, leaving a faint circle of teeth marks like a mock ring. "What are you doing?" I yelped. Ren's voice was low, almost shy. "Claiming," he said, then paused as if the word surprised him too. "Only if you want it." My chest tightened. All the years flashed. Bottles in rain, sweet potatoes, blood on his forehead, the knife in his sleeve, the police lights, my arms around him in the dark, Lena escaping the van, Ren building games to avoid building violence. I had come to save a villain. Somewhere along the way, he had saved me too. "I want it," I whispered. Ren's breath shuddered. He held me tighter, like he was afraid the world would charge rent for happiness. We didn't announce anything dramatic. We didn't stage a confession scene. We just kept living. Morning coffee, late-night code, my textbooks on his table, his jacket on my chair. Lena teased us mercilessly. Mr. Shen smiled like he had always known. Atlas kept score like a bored referee. In my second year, Ren's company stabilized. The betrayal that had almost broken him became a scar instead of a prophecy. He hired carefully. He trusted slowly. When anger rose in him, he learned to walk outside, breathe, and come back, instead of reaching for a weapon. Sometimes he still woke from nightmares. Sometimes I still crawled into his bed without asking. Sometimes he still pretended to count 5 minutes, and then held me longer. One night, as rain tapped the window like old memory, Ren said quietly, "If you hadn't lied to me in the alley, I'd be dead?" I teased, trying to lighten it. Ren shook his head slowly. "I'd be dead," he corrected. "Not in body, in something else." I swallowed. "I didn't lie about everything," I said. "I really was abandoned. Just not in the way," I said. Ren's hand found mine in the dark. He squeezed. "Then we make a new definition," he said. "Abandoned is what they did. Family is what we build." I stared at the ceiling and felt tears sting. "You sound like you're proposing," I joked weakly. Ren was silent long enough that my pulse spiked. Then he said, voice steady, "Maybe I am." I turned toward him, shocked. "Ren." He sat up, hair messy, eyes intense. "Not a ring with a price tag," he said quickly, as if defending himself. "Not a ceremony to prove anything, just a promise that I'll keep choosing the life you fought for, that I won't let my past turn into my future, that I will keep my hands clean when it matters." My throat closed. "Ren," I whispered. He stared at me like he was bracing for rejection. "Say no if you want," he said. "I won't punish you. I won't guilt you. I won't trap you. I swear." I laughed, broken and warm. "That's the whole point," I said. "You learned how not to trap." Ren's shoulders loosened, relief hitting him like gravity. "I don't have a ring," he admitted, embarrassed. "I only have this." He pulled a tiny silicone band from his desk drawer, the kind programmers use to hold a security chip. "It stores a key. For our apartment, for our files, for our backups, for everything we don't want stolen." It was the most Ren version of romance imaginable. I took it and slid it onto my finger. "Yes," I whispered. "I choose you. I choose us. I choose the tomorrow we keep for ourselves." Ren's eyes shone. He kissed my forehead first, careful, then my mouth, softer than the first fierce kiss, like a vow spoken without words. Outside, the city kept roaring. People kept hurting each other for money. Systems kept trying to sort children into roles they didn't choose. But in our small room, the light was warm, the power was on, and a boy who had once carried a knife in his sleeve held me with hands that had learned a different ending. Atlas, in my ear, said nothing for a long time. Then it offered one final line, almost gentle. "Mission complete. Continue living." The weeks after that promise were not a victory montage. Life never rewards you with clean credit for choosing the right path. It only stops charging extra interest for choosing the wrong one. Ren still carried the reflex to strike first, and I still carried the reflex to apologize even when I had done nothing. We were learning, slowly, like people relearning how to walk after years of limping. Atlas, annoyingly, did not vanish. It stopped shouting, but it stayed like a silent app no one asked for. Sometimes, when Ren's jaw tightened and his eyes went distant, Atlas would flick a tiny warning across my vision. Risk factor. Anger. Recommend de-escalation. It was maddening to be scored, but it was also a reminder that what we called love was, in practical terms, a set of choices made over and over. The first real test came from the past wearing a new face. Ren's ex-partner, Dima, resurfaced with a smile and a lawsuit. Dima claimed Ren had stolen code, stolen clients, stolen company vision. The paperwork was absurdly polished for a man who once ate our rice and called me little sister. He filed in a court downtown where the walls were white and the air smelled like new carpet, the kind of place that makes poor people whisper. When the notice arrived, Ren held it for a long time without speaking. His knuckles turned pale around the paper. I saw the old Ren in the way his shoulders rose, the way his gaze slid toward the kitchen drawer where we kept scissors and screwdrivers. "Don't," I said softly. Even though he hadn't moved, Ren's eyes flicked to me. "I'm not going to do anything," he said, and his voice was too calm, too flat. Atlas pinged. "High-risk event. Prevent violence." I put my hand on the drawer handle and leaned my weight on it, not as a guard but as a signal. We had built a life on signals. "Then sit," I said. Ren sat. His breath came fast through his nose like a bull trying to remember it's human. "He took everything," he muttered. "He took years. He took my sleep. Now he wants to take my name." "You still have your name," I said. "You still have your hands. Don't give him those too." Ren laughed once, bitter. "Easy for you to say," he snapped, then flinched as if he'd slapped me. I didn't step back. "It's not easy," I said. "It's just the only way that doesn't end with you in a cell and me visiting you through glass." The words landed. Ren's throat moved. His eyes shone with something that looked like rage until it softened into grief. "Okay," he whispered. And that one word felt like he was putting down a weapon. We went to court with a folder of evidence, a cheap lawyer recommended by Mr. Shen, and Lena's stubborn optimism stuffed into our pockets like lucky charms. Dima showed up in a tailored jacket, his hair cut clean, his mouth trained to look sincere. He looked at me and nodded as if we were still family. Ren stared at him with the kind of stillness that used to come before fire. In the hallway, Dima leaned close and murmured, "Heard you're doing well. Ren, heard you're engaged. Cute. You think you can outrun your origin forever?" Ren's eyes narrowed. "Move," he said. Dima smiled wider. "You can sign a settlement," he said. "Pay me, keep your little business, keep your girl. Or we can make this ugly." The public loves a villain story. They love watching someone crawl back into the gutter where they belong. Atlas flashed. Trigger word detected. Escalation likely. I stepped between them and smiled brightly, like a stupid girl in a rom-com. "Hi," I chirped. "Just so you know, I record everything when I'm nervous." Dima's smile faltered. Ren blinked at me, startled. I lifted my phone, screen dark, lying with charm. Dima backed off, his eyes calculating. Ren exhaled slowly. "Thank you," he said under his breath. Inside the courtroom, our lawyer did what lawyers do. Turned truth into a sequence. Made proof look boring enough for a judge to accept. We showed timestamps, receipts, emails, deposit trails. The judge listened. Dima's confidence cracked in tiny chips when contradictions piled up. By late afternoon, his lawsuit looked less like a claim and more like an attempted mugging. When the judge dismissed the case and warned Dima about sanctions, Ren didn't celebrate. He just sat very still, hands clasped, staring at the floor like he'd expected the universe to rewrite itself mid-sentence. Outside, I grabbed his shoulders. "We won," I said. Ren blinked. "We survived," he corrected. "Same thing today," I said. Ren's laugh came out rough, then softer. He pulled me into his chest in public, right there on the courthouse steps, and for once he didn't care who saw. His arms trembled. "Kay," he murmured. I wanted to break him. "I know," I whispered into his collar. "And you didn't. That's the point." That night, after the adrenaline faded, Ren admitted something he'd never said out loud. "Sometimes," he confessed, staring at his hands, "I miss how simple violence felt. It was a straight line. You hit. The world gets quiet for a second. No paperwork, no waiting." I sat beside him and laced our fingers together. "I miss it too," I admitted, surprising myself. "Not because it's good, because it's fast. Because when you're poor, slow solutions feel like a luxury." Ren looked at me, eyes wet. "Then why are we choosing slow?" he asked. "Because slow means we get to stay," I said, "and I want to stay with you." Ren swallowed hard and nodded. A month later, Atlas made good on its final promise without warning. In the middle of a normal Tuesday, while I was highlighting notes for a sociology exam, a headline lit up my feed. Harbor District hit and run case reopened. New evidence. New witness requested. My fingers went numb. Ren's parents. The drunk driver. The arrest that night had been for another charge. The old murder case had never fully closed. Atlas had forced the driver into custody, but the system hadn't healed the wound. Ren read the headline over my shoulder, his face drained of color. "They're asking for me," he whispered. "They want a statement. They want my memory." Atlas pinged. "Recommend cooperation. Closure probability high." I wanted to spit on the word closure. Nothing closed. It just changed shape. Ren didn't sleep for 3 nights. He stared at the ceiling, eyes open, as if watching a scene only he could see. On the 4th night, he sat up and said, voice flat, "If I go, they'll ask why I didn't do more. They'll ask why I didn't chase the car. They'll ask why I stood there with 3 popsicles like an idiot." My chest tightened. I had heard the story in fragments, always clipped, always ending before the part where his mother stopped moving. "Ren," I said gently, "you were a child." He shook his head. "I was there," he said. "That feels like guilt." I crawled into his lap and held his face between my hands. He still didn't love being touched, not always. But he let me, because we'd built permission into our habits. "Listen to me," I said. "Guilt is a story your pain tells to feel useful, but it doesn't make you responsible." Ren's eyes filled, furious with the wetness. "Then what am I?" he asked. "You're alive," I said. "And you're still choosing. That's enough." The day of the interview, Ren wore a plain shirt and kept rubbing his palms on his jeans. In the precinct waiting room, the fluorescent lights made everyone look sick. A detective offered him water. Ren didn't take it. His gaze stayed on the door. When they called his name, he stood like he was stepping into a fight. I stood too. The detective hesitated. "Only the witness," he said. I lifted my chin. "I'm his support," I said, and my voice didn't shake. "He doesn't do this alone." Maybe the detective saw my cheap shoes, my stubborn face, and recognized the kind of support that doesn't come from training but from necessity. He nodded and let me in. Ren spoke in a low voice at first. He described rain, headlights, a screech, bodies falling like puppets with cut strings. His hands shook when he mentioned his mother's scarf, the one she had knotted that morning, the one he found later soaked and heavy. He broke once, just once. A sharp inhale that turned into silence. I squeezed his hand under the table. He squeezed back like a lifeline. When the interview ended, the detective cleared his throat and said, "You did well." Ren stared at him, expression strange. "No," he said. "I just told the truth." Outside, Ren leaned against the precinct wall and slid down until he was sitting on the floor, head tipped back, eyes closed. I sat beside him. People walked around us like we were furniture. "I'm tired," he whispered. "I know," I said, and rested my shoulder against his. "But you did the hardest part. You let the truth exist without turning it into blood." Ren's mouth twitched. "You sound like Mr. Shen," he muttered. "Mr. Shen is annoyingly wise," I said. Ren's laugh was tiny. "Lena keeps him fed," he said. "That's why." When the prosecutor later called to say the driver would finally face charges for the deaths, Ren didn't cheer. He just went quiet, and then, late that night, he asked me to walk with him. We rode the bus back to the Harbor District. The streets were the same and not the same. The alley where we'd found bottles was now filled with different kids, different sacks, the same hunger. Ren stood at the corner and watched them with a rigid face. "I used to think," he said softly, "that if I got revenge, the hole would close." I wrapped my arms around his waist from behind, careful, and he didn't pull away. "And now?" I asked. Ren stared at the kids. "Now I think the whole is part of me," he said. "But it doesn't have to be the whole of me." Atlas, quiet for once, flashed a line. Target stability increased. Long-term risk low. I rolled my eyes at the invisible system. But inside, I felt something unclench. We didn't leave the Harbor District empty-handed. On the way home, Ren bought a sack of rice and handed it to a woman he recognized from the old days. He didn't make a speech. He just set the rice down and walked away. On the bus, I leaned my head on his shoulder. "You know," I said, "you're still stubborn." Ren snorted. So are you. Good, I said. And this time I meant it with a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. 2 stubborn people can build a roof. The next spring, Lena and Mr. Shen finally held a proper wedding dinner, the kind they couldn't afford before. It wasn't fancy. It was in a small restaurant with plastic chairs and a cake that leaned slightly. But Lena wore a simple white dress and looked like she'd stolen her own future back. She shoved a red envelope into my hand. Don't you dare refuse, she warned. Mr. Shen lifted his glass toward Ren. Thank you, he said. Simple. Ren looked uncomfortable, then nodded. You're welcome, he said. Don't hurt her. Lena rolled her eyes. As if he'd survive hurting me, she said, and kissed Mr. Shen in front of everyone just to embarrass him. Ren watched, stunned. Then he leaned toward me, voice low. Do people just do that? He asked. Yes, I whispered, grinning. That's called being shamelessly happy. Ren glanced at the room, then at my mouth. Try it, he murmured, daring. I laughed. Here? Ren's eyes challenged me. Here, he said. So I kissed him in a room full of cheap joy and sticky rice and the smell of roasted meat. Ren froze for half a second, then kissed me back, slower, warmer, as if he was learning to be shameless too. Later, when we walked home under streetlights, Ren squeezed my hand and said, almost embarrassed, I like our life. I squeezed back. Me too, I said. Even when it's messy. Ren looked up at the sky, where clouds drifted like quiet ships. Kay, he said, if Atlas was wrong about me being a villain, what else could it be wrong about? I thought of all the stories that try to assign